The ActivPanel Elements series comes with additional apps built into the screen. So, let's take a look at these applications so you can start deciding how are they gonna fit into your instruction. Let's talk about the timer. So there is a timer app built into the screen, and I love it because I'm one of those wordy teachers who always needs to keep my pace. A timer is also really good for keeping your students on pace. So where is it? Like many of the other apps, you're going to go to Locker and look for the timer application. Now, what I love about the timer application is that it floats on the screen no matter what. If you wanted to take up the whole screen, obviously you can expand it and now it takes up the whole screen, or you can shrink it down, but don't let this small app fool you. It's a 3-in-1. So you can choose the drop down here and change it to clock or timer or stopwatch. You also have the ability of clicking the gear there and changing it to digital or analog or turning the sound off. But what I like is having multiples on the screen so that you can perhaps turn one on timer, one on clock, so they're not asking what time it is all day. In fact, they can't read that, so let's go ahead and put that on digital. And then the last one you can put on stopwatch. Again, very, very simple application, but super powerful for keeping you and your students on pace during lessons. A great app that I also love on the Promethean ActivPanel Elements series is the Spinner app. Personally, I call it the random name picker because Spinner just sounds a little too fun. Not that class isn't fun, but to get to the Spinner app is just like most of your apps here. You're gonna go ahead and open up your Locker, and you're just gonna look for an application called Spinner. Much like the timer app, if you've ever played with it, this too can float on top of everything. You can expand it so that it covers up the whole screen. You can shrink it back down. But what I like about it the most is the drop down here lets you create new lists or use existing lists. So don't think the Spinner exists as is. Oh no. You can fully customize this by creating your own lists. Additionally, I'm all about multiples. You always wanna give students the ability to collaborate and work in different groups. And so in my case, I can have multiple spinners for multiple groups. My favorite thing? The kid whose name always seems to get called. You can hit the gear here and turn it on select item only once so that that kid's name only gets picked once. And the cool thing about this is it doesn't remove the kid's name. So the kid may be thinking he or she's gonna be called on again, but you know better because you selected that box. Lastly, you can go ahead and hit the X to close the spinner, but don't forget that you can use it on top of any application. It floats. So when you need to randomly pick something, go for the spinner. All right, let's talk about annotations. The ability to write on top of everything. This is something that we teachers, all of us, use every day to underscore things, to model things. And one of the biggest, most frustrating things is when you have something up here and you can't write on it. Well, the Promethean ActivPanel Elements series has an Annotate app that lets you write on anything. I'll show you what I mean. For instance, I am an English teacher, so if I am just in my locker on the internet and I found Romeo and Juliet on the internet, and we're doing a read aloud about two households both alike in dignity, but to help us explain some of the words that they may not understand, like mutiny, I can go ahead and open up my floating unified menu, choose Annotate, and I get a floating menu that lets me annotate directly on the screen. And so if we need to do a quick Freyer model about the word mutiny, you do it directly on the screen. And if for some reason you need to touch the screen, remove the annotations real quick, you just hit the eyeball, and now you can scroll like normal, and then the eyeball will bring back your annotations. If you need to erase everything, you can use the eraser tool or simply clear the whole thing. And then another strategy that maybe some lower elementary English teachers might like is highlighting. So you also have a highlighter tool, so you're able to annotate in real time. Writing on content has never been as simple as clicking an annotation app. That's why That, for me, is my single most used Promethean Elements series app. For those of you who might have an Apple TV at home or maybe a Google Chromecast, you know the concept of wireless mirroring, to be able to show a laptop or a phone on the screen at any time. Well, I'll have you know that the Promethean ActivPanel Elements series comes with an application called Screen Share that floats directly on your screen and allows multi-mirroring. So let me back up a step. Promethean ActivPanels have consistently offered you mirroring for a while. You may be used to an application called ActiveCast. So those of you who've been using mirroring. The new application Promethean is offering for mirroring is called Screen Share. What's the difference? Screen Share is gonna allow multiple people to join a waiting room so that you can pick and choose who's mirroring at any given time. Let's back up a step. The first time you open Screen Share, it'll be in its floating menu format. So you may ask yourself, what is this? The name of your panel is at the top. The second thing is your panel ID. That is how anybody who wants to mirror identifies your panel. You have a person icon there on the left that tells you if anybody's in your waiting room to be, oh, I have a person in my waiting room. The question mark, obviously, that's how you get help. So if you don't know how to do screen mirroring, screen sharing, just hit the question mark. But for me, I have a student. So if you simply hit the people icon, it will show you your class in the waiting room. So I see Patrick is here. If I check his name, it'll let me select him. And then I just choose share. So let's see what Patrick has on his device today. Aha! Patrick is following instruction today. He's actually working on something academic. And I want you to remember something here. If you use the Annotate tool and the timer tool and the spinner tool, please don't forget that all of those work in conjunction. So technically, if I wanted to wirelessly mirror a student's device and then use this as teachable content, you can write directly on it. So just don't forget that your apps work in conjunction. So I have Patrick here. I'm moseying. You can still see the person icon in the corner. And that'll bring you back to the lobby where you can see everybody. Oh, I know what you're wondering. How many people can show at the same time? The answer is 4. That's pretty magical to be able to show 4 different devices wirelessly on the screen. Oh, you wanna know, can you touch when it's wireless? The answer is yes. So if you're wirelessly mirroring with a PC or a Mac, so a computer, it'll give you the ability to select touchback, which means you can completely control the touch and all of the image wirelessly. If you're mirroring a phone or a Chromebook, it'll give you just the image, but again, you have all of these tools you can use in conjunction with it. Finally, you can deselect people, you can boot them out. Bye. And you also have settings down here in the corner, which will let you adjust the picture quality. And if you show the student's name next to his or her device, you have the refresh button there. That's gonna change your panel ID. So why would you wanna change the ID at the top? Why would you wanna refresh and boot everybody? Well, you switch classes. So when you switch classes and new students come in, perhaps you want a new code for them so the old class isn't still mirroring. So that refresh button will boot everybody out and refresh the session. And then finally, the X will close things. Again, when you do screen share, look for the question mark if you don't know anything, but it's actually very intuitive. So a great app on the Promethean ActivPanel Elements series is called Capture. It does what you think it does. If there's any content showing on your screen, you can capture it and it goes directly to your whiteboard. I'll show you what I mean. So if I'm just on the internet, I'm in my locker using Chromium, and I am using Romeo and Juliet as usual, my favorite lesson, but instead of just annotating on the screen and it disappearing, I'm gonna use this content a lot. So it would be better for me to capture it so that I can reuse it. So in this case, you choose the Capture application. It'll snap the screen. You see what I'm doing? You can cut out exactly what you need. So I have what I need. When you hit done, it'll get just that, and you choose open in whiteboard. This is my part. That was fast. Now that it's in the whiteboard, it's a usable object. So you can pinch, you can zoom, you can rotate, and then you get additional tools to use with it. So if you're a math teacher and you capturing math problems or graphs and things like that, you can use the math tools in conjunction because it's in your whiteboard. I'm an English teacher, so what I would probably do now that it's in the whiteboard is I would probably go to images and use some of these graphic organizers in conjunction with this. So know that capturing, the big difference here is that capturing is gonna put it inside of the whiteboard so you can use it with other notes you've been taking for the day. Where are all the captures? You beat me to it. The captures are here in images. You simply have to choose gallery, and there it is. So your captures are caching in your gallery. They are temporarily cached. So if you wanna move them, I'm nerding here, but I think you don't mind. If you wanna move them, you'll need to go to the Files app on the screen, and that Files app will let you move all your captures onto your ActivPanel. So the name of the game here is use the content you have and capture it all into that whiteboard to make it that engaging, collaborative instruction. The capture tool, it's my best friend. Teachers have spoken and Promethean has listened. One of the biggest things we've been asking for is the ability to sign into our cloud storage accounts directly on the panel because that's where most of our content is, in the cloud. Well, Promethean answered. And you have cloud storage built in to your Element Series ActivPanel. How do you get to it? Watch this. You simply need to open up your floating unified menu, choose owner or whatever profile you're signed into, and then go ahead and hit the cloud icon. I know it might not look like a cloud, to me it's more like a marshmallow, but it's the third icon here, and then you'll have the ability to add your Google Drive or your Office 365 account. So what happens when you sign in? I love this. So you've been using that whiteboard app, huh? You've been taking notes, you've been doing your thing, and you wanna put this in your Google Drive because eventually you're gonna share it to Classroom. So let me get some ugly notes. There's my ugly notes. And then you're gonna do 3 dots and export that whole canvas. Now what we're accustomed to is saving things directly onto the panel. And then you gotta put it on a jump drive and bring it home and download it. We want it to go straight to the cloud. So you simply hit the 3 lines here and you choose Google Drive. And notice at the bottom, you can go ahead and name that file and save it to Google Drive. So I can call that notes, hit save, and it'll save it to my Google Drive. Done. Now I can go home, I can continue teaching, and when I need to pull that file again, y'all, you just go Locker, Files, and again, this is the tricky part because by default, it's looking at the panel. Just choose Google Drive, y'all. All your stuff is accessible whether you use Google Drive or OneDrive. And that shortcut makes all the difference when you're teaching groups of kids who get really distracted. If you have the faster, more powerful Titanium series of the ActivPanel, you have a feature called windowing. Windowing. What is windowing, right? It's the ability to float apps inside of windows so you can see multiples at the same time. I'll show you. So I'm a huge fan of the whiteboard. I use the whiteboard every day, all my thoughts I need to put on paper, but you'll notice with the Titanium series ActivPanel, you have the ability to shrink it. So now that it is shrinked, you can move it anywhere on the screen. So what would you want to put right next to this whiteboard? The reading passage. So wherever your reading passage is, Adobe, Google Drive, you'll pull that up. In my case, my reading passages are just on the internet. I am spoiled. And notice that I can float that window anywhere on the screen. Ooh. If you want to put them side by side, you choose the side by side button down there at the bottom, and we'll put that on the left. And this, my friends, is how I love to teach. Because now I have the ability to fully manipulate the internet here, so I can drag. And then on the other side, I have the ability to write in my whiteboard. It's teaching my students that practice of being an active reader, an active participant, and I'm modeling this. This double window thing is the same thing I'm gonna want them to do when they're studying. And so that works with most applications built onto the screen. So open them up, move them around, because the new ActivPanel Titanium allows you to just move your apps around the screen like you're on Soul Train. Whew. You have a lot of applications at your disposal with the Promethean ActivPanel Elements series. And because these applications are built directly on the screen, you don't really need an additional computer to deliver some engaging instruction. That's great. You're great. So great that you deserve a break. So take a breather, try out some of these applications, and then come back to us when you're ready to continue.